Hello and welcome back to Art Masters with me, Mrs. Portilla. Today we're going to be doing a large scale flower watercolor just like Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia liked to zoom in on flowers and certain objects to simplify them and get the viewer's attention. She used light and dark value to make her paintings look realistic. So today we are going to be zooming in on our own flowers using some watercolor pencils. So when you're ready, let's go ahead and get started on our Georgia O'Keeffe watercolor flower. Okay, so to get started on our O'Keeffe flower, our larger than life flower, we're going to get our white paper and a pencil. O'Keeffe liked to paint what she sees, what she saw, and you'll see that I have these little view finders, right? So what is this gonna do? You'll notice this is a square, just like our white paper. So to make this larger than life, this is gonna help us visualize how we would crop our picture. So you see how I'm moving this around and saying, ooh, that would go off of the paper. I would draw that just like that, okay? I could do this larger than life picture where I have just the petals going off the edge. Maybe you don't like how small my viewfinder is, and that's okay because look at this big, beautiful flower here. So the idea is to make a square. So if you have like two scrap papers as a square, oh, okay, cool. So maybe I would do it like that, okay? So what you're gonna do is you guys are all gonna grab a viewfinder, or like I said, you can kind of make your own where you're just covering it to make it crop. This person did a super zoomed in crop, which looks really cool. This person just put the flower kind of off to the side. That's something you could probably just do with your eyes. This person did the same thing, just kind of cut off half of the flower coming off of the page. And again, this person did a really zoomed in, just the center of the flower. So that's what we're thinking of doing, is how are we gonna do these flowers being cut off the page, taking the entire page. So just take a minute and let's look through the little flower examples we have and how we wanna use our viewfinder. Okay, so we should have an idea of the flower we want and how we're going to crop it, so that way we can draw what we see. So obviously this one is very tiny, right? But you'll see that this is a square, so I want to make this tiny square onto my big square. So what I see is I have a lot of space here at the bottom right, and it takes almost up the rest of my canvas or my paper, right? So I like to start with the little center shape. So I see that that's about halfway. So let's just watch how I am thinking, and then you'll just draw what you see. And these are flowers, so they don't have to be perfect. So I'm gonna start with my center, and I see that it's about here, right? So I'm not trying to get it perfect. I'm just making a little mark for the center. And then I see that this little shape, it's pretty close to the top. So I'm just gonna kind of follow what I see, and then it kind of meets down to the center. This shape has like a little bit of a V, and then I see that this shape kind of meets back like that. And now I'm kind of looking at this big giant shape here that just kind of do a wiggly flower. Now, does that look perfect? It doesn't. So I'm gonna kind of go in and add a couple more petals, right? So I enlarged my drawing there from my little section here. So for a more traditional daisy look. Now this center of the flower is off to the side and to the bottom, okay? So what I mean by that is it's not right in the center of my drawing board here, my canvas. So I'm gonna just draw kind of a big circle off to the side, that these petals don't go off the edge, but these petals down here do. So I'm gonna just kind of sketch these petals. Okay, so now, even though my sketch is not perfect, that's okay. I'm going to use my water-soluble pencils or watercolor pencils. So watch what I'm gonna do first. I'm gonna keep my little sketch, my little viewfinder image out. Okay, so I am going to pick the colors I want, and I'm gonna outline my shapes with these colors. So I'll remember that I did kind of this center, but I didn't really do the details. It looks like they're kind of lines. I'd rather do that with my color pencil. So I'm gonna choose orange for my center here, and I'm just going over the lines. This is not like traditional colored pencil. I'm not trying to fill in every spot with this. I'm just trying to get the edges. So then when I go over it with watercolor, it's going to blend with the watercolor. I'm just putting it on the edge. So watch what I'm doing. I'm just kind of making my center with that orange, right? And if I push hard, I'm getting a darker value. And then I'm gonna go over the edge of my petals. So this one, I think I'm going to make purple. So I'm just gonna go over the edge of my drawing. And I'm not always just doing it one line. I'm kind of going over it a little bit, okay? So go ahead and use the watercolored pencils, and you're going over your pencil line. This is where you could fix some of your lines or add the middle, make it a little bit more defined. Excellent, so we just have the outline of the colors that we want, okay? So now we're gonna get a little bit more interesting with our colors. So again, I'm not trying to fill this in like a colored pencil. I'm just trying to get a little bit of this pigment down. So then when I put my brush over it, it's going to fill in with this nice wash, like a color wash. So it's a light water-based wash. So we're not trying to fill in all with this pencil. So watch what I'm doing, and then you will follow. So I'm gonna use the same color because I already have my color idea down. And now I'm gonna go over the edge, but I'm following the shape. So the harder I push, the darker value I'm gonna get, but I'm also thinking about three-dimensional. So I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna color the edge, and then I'm gonna leave the rest white. So when I go over it, I'm gonna have a nice natural highlight there. Just like O'Keeffe used the white of her paper, we're gonna use the white of our paper. So we're just adding a little bit more color or pigment by the edge of each shape. Excellent, so you should see how I have a lot of white left because I want to leave room for my paint to spread. Okay, so now maybe a little bit more advanced option. This is optional. Maybe you want to add a hint of a second color. So what do I mean by a hint? Well, I already have purple here. So I might take this lighter purple and I might just kind of add a little bit of color there. Maybe I have this darker green. Maybe I'll just add a hint of the darker green. And maybe with my red, you see how I'm keeping it similar? Maybe I'll just add a little bit of that. Okay, so if you want to add just a little bit of a hint of color, so with my orange, maybe I'll just add a hit with the red just on the bottom side, which is going to make it seem a little darker. And with my yellow, maybe I'll add just a little bit of orange just along the edge, just to add a little more interest. So we're not getting crazy with these colors. We want this to look realistic, but if you want to add just like a second color, a hint, go ahead. Okay, excellent. One last option if you want. We could take our little viewfinder away, and maybe we want to add a little bit. This is optional. Yours might be perfect, okay? So this one I have a little bit of a stem here. Let's just look at the picture. Let's look at some of these other items we have. We have a little bit of leaves with that, some more stems. So maybe, again, optional, maybe I want to take my pencil and add an extra little leaf shape in the background. Okay, once you feel like you have your composition down, your arrangement, we're going to do a wax resist. So we're going to use our black crayon, and we're just going over the outline of our shape. So then when we go over it with water, the shapes are going to be protected because of this wax resist. Now we don't want to go crazy with the black. We're just doing the outline. So just lightly over each edge of the shape. This is where if you need to fix any shapes, if you don't like a shape, don't go over it with your black crayon. Excellent. So now we can go a little further with our black crayon. Little, okay? So watch first what I mean by little. So I have this center here. So I'm just gonna kind of go over with kind of these jagged lines for the center. And if I want to add just a tiny bit of shading, which is the dark with my crayon, I'm going to look at my picture because I like to be accurate, right? So I have my flower here and I notice the darkest part is kind of that center part and this little leaf here. So I might just add a couple of little wavy black lines that follow the shape just around a couple parts of my flower, okay? That's optional. You don't have to do that at all if you don't want to, okay? But with black, black could be overpowering, so we gotta be very careful with this black. Remember, we're gonna be taking our brush to bring in color. So for my, we'll call this a daisy or a sunflower, I'm gonna notice I have dark around the edges of my little flower and it looks a little textured. So I'm not gonna go overboard in texture the whole thing. I might just add a little bit of dashed lines towards the edge. Maybe I want to add some on the edge here. Okay, it's up to you how much detail you really want to add. Maybe I want to add these little petal lines like this. Okay, so before we get our water, you guys are going to be gluing your picture down. So what are we going to do? We're going to get that black paper and we're going to get our O'Keefe tag. Glue the O'Keefe tag on the back and of course put your name on the back. Once you have that done, you want to glue your picture down on the black paper before we add the water. So go ahead and stick your O'Keefe sticker on the back with your name on the back, and then you're going to get your water and wait for me. Okay, so everyone should have their image glued down. Make sure your name's on the back, so once you're done, we could just turn it in. Okay, so we do not need a lot of water. So if you have a lot of water, you might want to go dump some out. We really don't need a lot of water. We don't want to mess, okay? So you may need a little paper towel or tissue or something. I'm gonna get my brush and just watch me first because I'm gonna do each section at a time, okay? So you'll notice here I have this big white section. So I'm gonna start where I have my heaviest area of color and I'm gonna spread it down. And I like to follow the way of my shape, okay? So I'm gonna dip it in the water and dab it a little bit. And then I'm gonna go over the edge because I remember that's where I had most of my color, was right along that edge. Dip a little bit more, dab. And then I'm gonna bring it down, okay? I'm gonna go along my edge. All right, my friends, so once we've gone over each section with our brush, we are done. So you can look over and see like, oh, I didn't get that little part. And then once it dries, it's not gonna have this gray look. Right now the painting is wet, okay? So you're going to set down your painting when you're finished. If you were like me and you had a ton of space and you see how that's still white, that means it's dry. So if it's dry in a certain place and you decide you just want one more little hit of color, you could take your pencil lightly, your colored watercolor pencil, and just add a little area of color. But if it's wet, your paper is going to rip. And I like having a little bit of white, but if you were noticing you have huge areas of white that you didn't even go over with water, you could just add a little bit more of color. But again, I like a little bit of white and so did O'Keefe. So I hope once these dry, you get a chance to evaluate them and that you enjoyed your art by Georgia O'Keefe. Great job. Great job today on your O'Keeffe flower. Hopefully, if you guys have time to evaluate each other's work, you could evaluate the composition, how they zoomed in onto their flower. Maybe you could talk about the value, the different colors, the dark and the light. And I hope that you enjoyed seeing each other's work of the different flowers by Georgia O'Keeffe. And I'll see you next time on Art Masters.